You did the ritual. You placed the salt. You whispered the words. And things began to move. Light came in. Flow returned. You felt it. But now, everything feels still again. Why? Most people think the ritual ends after the placement. But that's the moment. It begins to fade. What if I told you your wealth flow is not stuck because you did it wrong? It's stuck because you stopped too soon. Today, we open the part of the ritual no one teaches. How to keep salt alive so wealth keeps flowing. Salt doesn't stay activated just because you placed it once. Like all things in energy, it breathes, it holds, and if left too long, it turns. Your ritual is not a moment. It's a rhythm, a living invitation that must be remembered, refreshed, and released. Because in Feng Shui, what you don't clear will begin to cling. Even the salt that once opened wealth can start to trap what no longer serves you. So, in this final ritual, we go deeper, into cycles, into signs, into subtle ways to keep the qi moving, long after the ritual was done. And maybe, if you're ready, we'll open a new layer, where salt meets the other elements of abundance. But first, let's return to the salt you once placed and listen to what it's asking for now. Before we begin this final ritual, I want to remind you gently, this isn't a standalone practice. It's part of a flow, a deeper rhythm that's been building since the first bowl of salt was placed. If you haven't yet watched the earlier salt rituals, go back. Each one unlocks a layer you'll need to truly feel what this one is opening. And if something in you feels called to walk this path with presence, subscribe, not to follow, but to stay in rhythm. Because what we're doing here isn't just content, it's a current, and you are already part of it. The first sign that your wealth ritual is fading is this. The salt has gone silent. It doesn't call. It doesn't feel alive. It just sits. At first, it was luminous, like it breathed with your space. But now, it looks the same. It feels different. The air around it is still, but not calm. The room is clean, but not bright. The energy isn't bad, but it's not moving. And inside you might begin to feel it too. A dullness, a slow resistance, work that flows, but doesn't finish. Ideas that arrive, but dissolve. In Feng Shui, this isn't random. Salt has a cycle. Once it absorbs what no longer serves, it must be released. If not, the same salt that cleansed your space begins to hold it hostage. Just like lungs can't hold one breath forever, your salt can't carry energy without renewal. You might look at the bowl and think it's still white, still clean, looks fine, but energy doesn't always show on the surface. Look deeper. Is the salt clumping, turning slightly gray, yellow, or moist? Is the coin you placed losing its shine? Most importantly, has the atmosphere of the room stopped shifting? Has the light gone flat? The chi line you once felt, where wind used to cross, now feels blocked? That's not your life. That's your salt, calling quietly to be awakened again. I once stayed in a friend's home. She had placed a salt bowl near her desk. 3 months ago, she did it right. The intention, the breath, the placement, but she never touched it again. When I walked into the room, it felt like a thought half finished, like the air had been paused mid-sentence. And when I picked up the bowl, the salt was still white, but the energy was heavy, dry, yet clogged. She told me, "Lately I've felt stuck, like I know what I need to do, but can't move." And I whispered, "So does your salt." This is the thing no one tells you. Salt doesn't look expired until you listen to it. And by the time you feel the block, it's already been holding too much for too long. Modern energy theory confirms this. Salt crystal structures shift over time as they absorb ions, moisture, and emotional frequency. And once saturated, they don't just stop absorbing. They start releasing what they held. That's why you don't just feel stuck. You feel surrounded by an old version of yourself you thought you had already cleared. So pause, breathe, look around. Has the room gone flat? Has the salt gone still? If so, this isn't a failure. It's an invitation, a signal that your space is ready to be remembered again. Let's continue, because now that you've seen the signs of energetic exhaustion, we'll learn how to bring your ritual back to life. If your salt has gone still, you don't replace it in a rush. You don't throw away a sacred object like trash. You return it with presence, with rhythm, with reverence, because salt needs to breathe with you. In Feng Shui, everything moves in cycles. There's a rhythm to energy, a pulse to every ritual. And just like the moon, your salt works best when honored in phases. So how often should you renew it? It depends on what kind of space you're in. 7 days, if your home holds heavy activity, conflict, emotional shifts, guests, or intense work. Pardon 6, 14 days, balanced homes, quiet, aligned, but still in motion. 21, 30 days, for sacred stable spaces, where flow has already returned and stayed consistent. But there's more important than the number. You must feel the shift. Don't just watch the calendar. Watch your space. Watch your energy. Ask gently, is the salt still listening? Has the chi slowed again? Am I acting or aligning? When it's time to renew, don't just switch the bowl. Move slowly. Let the space know you're beginning again. Ritual to renew salt, step-by-step whisper. 1. Pick the right time. Morning is best. Dawn is sacred. The first light carries renewal. Before the world speaks, you invite clarity. 2. Remove the old salt gently. Don't dump it. Whisper, "Thank you for holding what I no longer need." Place it into flowing water or return it to the earth. Let it go with grace. 3. Clean the bowl. Rinse with warm water. Wipe with a cloth that feels soft in your hand. Not to polish, but to reset the space. 4. Add new salt with awareness. Let it fall like snow. Let your presence guide the flow. No rushing, no pouring, just placing. 5. Whisper your breath again. You don't need new wishes. You need new presence. Let the salt feel your readiness. With this bowl, I renew my flow. With this breath, I invite wealth to return. Place the salt back mindfully, either at the same location or at a new place that now feels alive. Feel for the chi line. You'll know it. It's where the light lingers, just a second longer. Why do all this? Because ritual is not about routine. It's about rhythm, about reminding your space. I am still listening. I am still choosing. And salt, when renewed like this, becomes not just a purifier, but a pulse that keeps your wealth energy awake. So mark your cycle, not in your calendar, but in your awareness, because when you miss the rhythm, the ritual becomes background noise. But when you move with it, your entire space becomes a living invitation for abundance to stay. Let's continue, because even with the right cycle, some habits quietly block the flow without you knowing. Next, we'll look into the silent mistakes people make when trying to keep the ritual alive, and why repetition without awareness can reverse everything. Ritual is not about what you do once. It's about what you're willing to return to. Because wealth doesn't stay in spaces we forget. It stays in places we remember to care for. The salt doesn't ask for more action. It asks for more presence, more rhythm, more listening. Every time you return to it, you're not just renewing the salt. You're renewing your relationship with the energy that carries abundance. And when that relationship is nurtured, quietly, gently, rhythmically, wealth knows it has a home to return to. Let's keep going, because even when you try to do it right, there are habits that quietly block the flow without you realizing. If you've ever done the ritual and then forgot it, you're not alone. But the fact that you're here means something in you. I want to remember again. So tell me, when was the last time you renewed your salt? Or maybe, what sign will you watch for? To know it's time, write it below. Not just to comment, but to continue the rhythm, to whisper back into your own ritual. Because when you share your moment of return, you don't just speak, you help the energy breathe again. You want to keep the ritual alive, so you repeat it every 7 days, every 14. You clean the bowl, you replace the salt, but something feels off. It doesn't feel sacred anymore. It feels like a checklist, a routine, a background habit you do while thinking about other things. And that is the first silent mistake. Mistake 1. Repetition without presence. Rituals don't work because you follow steps. They work because you show up. Without energy, repetition becomes decay, like watering a plant without looking at it. Your hands move, but your chi doesn't arrive. Mistake 2. Replacing the salt without releasing it. You remove the salt. You throw it in the trash. You forget to say thank you. You forget to say goodbye. But in Feng Shui, everything holds memory. And if you discard something that has held your energy without closure, you risk keeping its weight somewhere in the room. The ritual isn't just in what you bring in, it's in how you let go. Salt that has served you deserves to be released with grace, or else some of what it carried may linger in your field. Mistake 3. Moving the salt to a new spot without asking the energy. You cleanse. You feel good. You think, let me try this other corner. But you never pause to feel the chi line. Never notice whether that part of the room wants to hold energy or is just convenient. And suddenly, the salt stops listening because it was placed without consultation, without alignment. I once guided a woman named Arya, who had been doing the ritual every week. She said, "It's clean, it's constant, but something feels flat." I asked her one question. "Do you feel anything when you place the bowl down?" She paused, then said, "Number. I'm always thinking about groceries or my inbox." That was her shift. The day she stopped repeating and started remembering again. Because here's the truth. Even sacred rituals to become dull when we stop bringing ourselves into them. Salt doesn't just ask to be used. It asks to be witnessed, to be felt, to be part of a living relationship. So if you've made these mistakes, don't worry. It doesn't undo what you've built. It only means your ritual is ready to feel you again. And now that you know what not to do, let's explore how to bring your salt back to life. Not just through steps, but through presence. The salt responds to where you place it. But more than that, it responds to what you place into it. And the most powerful energy you can offer is not your words, not even your breath. It's your attention, your conscious presence. Your salt holds chi, but your mind is the gatekeeper. When you place salt without awareness, it stays hollow, but when you place it with full intention, even silently, you create an energetic imprint that no ritual can replace. Your thoughts, your focus, your inner stillness are what awaken the salt and tell it what to carry. So if you want your ritual to work at its highest level, don't just change the salt, change the way you bring your mind to meet it. That is the key that opens the flow. Most people think a ritual only lives in the moment you light the candle or whisper the words. But real power comes from what you do after the ritual is done, what you return to, what you notice, and how you stay. You don't need 20 minutes. You don't need incense. You don't even need to speak. You need to care. And that care must be felt by the salt. Each morning, as you pass by the bowl, pause, stop, let your hand rest just above it, not touching, just sensing. You'll feel it if you're still enough. A faint coolness, a hum, a quiet invitation. That is your salt waiting to be seen again. Take one breath, not just for oxygen, but to bring your mind back into your body. Because energy doesn't flow when your thoughts are in 10 places. It flows when all of you arrives in one. Let that breath settle, then exhale it gently over the bowl. Don't blow, just offer. Let your chi move from your chest into the crystals. This is not superstition. It's entrainment. The salt mirrors your state. If you are scattered, it becomes cloudy. If you are grounded, it stabilizes the space. Now, whisper something simple, not for the universe, not to manifest, just to remind the ritual that it still matters to you. Stay awake. Keep the flow open. I see you. These aren't spells. They're connections. They're what keep your home's chi from falling asleep again. Because chi is like a river. It doesn't flood when summoned. It arrives when space says, I'm still ready. And you, with this tiny act of return, I say just that. I once knew a woman who said, the days I don't speak to my salt, I feel like money forgets me too. But it wasn't about money. It was about memory. She had trained her home to respond to her presence. And when her presence disappeared, so did the pulse. So if you want wealth, not just to arrive, but to stay, I don't ask for more. Ask deeper. Ask, have I been here lately? Did I look at the salt, or just walk past it? Did I breathe, or just exist? Your ritual doesn't need to be repeated. It needs to be fed, with presence, with breath, with a moment of real return. And if you do this, even for 30 seconds a day, your home will begin to remember. Your field will stay awake, and the wealth will never need to be asked for again. Let's continue, because even presence has a cycle, and when the time comes to say goodbye to your salt, you'll need to know how to let go without undoing what you've built. You've tended to your salt. You've spoken to it. You've fed it with breath and presence. But now, a quiet shift is asking to happen. Because even sacred energy has a life cycle. And when a ritual has done its work, it must be released. So how do you know? When the time has come, it's not just about color, or clumping, or the days on the calendar. It's a feeling. The room feels slightly off. The air feels heavier, but not dark. Your thoughts move slower. Your sleep doesn't land the same. This is not a failure. It's an invitation. Your salt has done its work. It has absorbed. It has protected. And now, it's full. But don't just toss it. Don't forget it. Salt is a witness. It has held what you no longer could. And it deserves a return that honors what it held. So, here is the ritual of release. Pause. Stand before the bowl. Place both hands around it. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let one breath move through your chest and out toward the salt. Whisper, not as a spell, as a thank you. Thank you for holding. Thank you for serving. I release you now, with grace. Return it to the earth, beneath a tree, into flowing water. Not the trash, not the drain. Give it back to something that breathes. Let it become part of the earth's cycle again, so your own cycle can stay clean. This act is more than a gesture. It is the final movement of energy that has served you being released, so it does not turn stale. Because in Feng Shui, what is not released becomes what is blocked, and even the most sacred object can begin to leak heaviness if we keep it beyond its purpose. Once you've let it go, don't rush to fill the bowl again. Let the space sit, empty, quiet. Let it breathe before something new arrives. And when you do bring in new salt, bring it with clarity, with softness, with readiness. Because wealth doesn't just flow where you place salt. It flows where you create space for something new to begin. You've now learned how to place how to care, how to renew, and how to let go. But there's one last key. We've only whispered so far. What if salt was only one part of the flow? What if there are other elements that could amplify everything you've already opened? Let's go there, just for a moment. You've come a long way, not just in this video, but through the entire journey of remembering what salt can truly hold. You've seen how a simple mineral can carry presence, intention, cycles, flow. You've placed it, spoken to it, renewed it, released it, and now you've learned how to keep it alive. This was never about superstition. It was never about luck. It was always about energy and your willingness to tend to it. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't respond to what you do once. It responds to what you continue to honor quietly. So if this video reminded you of something you forgot or awakened something deeper you didn't know you carried, that's not an accident. That's energy responding. If this stirred something still inside you, a calm knowing, a quiet readiness, in Feng Shui, the way you treat small things becomes the pattern for everything larger. And when you honor the salt, you teach your life how to hold wealth gently. So comment below, not just what you learned, but what you'll keep alive. Tell me, what part of this ritual will you carry into tomorrow? Or simply write, I choose to stay awake. Say it softly, in your heart, in your home, or in the dark room before sleep. I choose rhythm. I choose care. I choose to be the space that wealth quietly returns to. Thank you for staying until the very end. Not many do, but those who do have already begun to change the field around them. I see you, and I trust your salt does too. You've come a long way, not just in this video, but through the entire journey of remembering what salt can truly hold. You've seen how a simple mineral can carry presence, intention, cycles, flow. You've placed it, spoken to it, renewed it, released it, and now you've learned how to keep it alive. This was never about superstition. It was never about luck. It was always about energy and your willingness to tend to it. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't respond to what you do once. It responds to what you continue to honor quietly. Pause, light breath. So if this video reminded you of something you forgot or awakened something deeper you didn't know you carried, that's not an accident. That's energy responding. Trigger. If this stirred something still inside you, a calm knowing, a quiet readiness, logic. In Feng Shui, the way you treat small things becomes the pattern for everything larger. And when you honor the salt, you teach your life how to hold wealth gently. Prompt. So, comment below, not just what you learned, but what you'll keep alive. Tell me, what part of this ritual will you carry into tomorrow? Or simply write, I choose to stay awake. Affirmation. Say it softly, in your heart, in your home, or in the dark room before sleep. I choose rhythm. I choose care. I choose to be the space that wealth quietly returns to. Thank you for staying until the very end. Not many do, but those who do have already begun to change the field around them. I see you, and I trust your salt does too.